This is an overview of the PLN model. Here is an image, a model of a typical teacher network. And this is from, you can see Alex Kouros, and you see the URL there. And as you look across the top, here are what he thinks are the components of the typical teacher network. So there are curriculum documents, and you'll see that's a one-way arrow, because curriculum documents are not something that we interact with in the classic sense of the word. We consume them, so it's a one-way arrow. We also, on this image, have colleagues, and of course that's a two-way arrow because we interact with colleagues, they interact with us. There's popular media, which for the most part we interact with as consumers. There's print and digital resources, and then there's family and local community. So that's the typical teacher network. Now, some of us aren't K-12 teachers, some of us are. But I like to think of this rather than the typical teacher network, to think of this as the typical individual network or even the typical employee network. And if we're thinking about it as an individual or employee network, we can make a couple of modifications to this image. So rather than curriculum documents, which is more K-12 teachery, we might think of these as work documents or training materials. And then I'm going to add something to the model, which are training classes, professional development, on-the-job training, and informal learning, because that's all part of the typical network for those of us who are individuals or who are employees. And that, of course, would be a double-headed arrow because we interact with those and they interact with us. This kind of network, what Alex Kouros refers to as the typical teacher network, what we're going to call the typical employer individual network, I think of this more as a casual or almost an accidental PLN, because this isn't a professional learning network that someone set out to design and create. These happen to be around us, and this is just stuff we're accidentally interacting with, so that's how it becomes part of our PLN. So that's why I call it more of a casual or accidental PLN. Now on the next page, I want to talk through a model that's a much more deliberate or intentional PLN. So you can see, first of all, this is a much busier model. There are many more components to this model, although the first components are the same. Although it says here this is the networked teacher, we're going to refer to this as the networked individual. And as I said, this is more of an intentional PLN, one that we create and construct. So the first few things in the model are exactly the same as the previous page. There are curriculum documents, there are colleagues, there's popular media, print and digital resources, family and local community. Now some of these we have already accessed as part of this class. So curriculum documents, we've had handouts in this class and will of course continue to have them. There's colleagues that we've interacted with already through forums and collaborative assignments. We haven't interacted yet with popular media, but we have used print and digital resources. In particular, we've used Google Drive, both documents and spreadsheets. And we haven't used family and local community yet either. But we've gotten a start on our intentional PLN, and this is something that you are going to build through the rest of the semester, so that by the end of the semester you will have created, intentionally, on purpose, a professional learning network, a PLN, that works for you and your development, so that this can be a benefit to you in this class, but beyond this class as well. As we continue around this model, you'll see the next thing is blogs. And blogs are something that we're going to be using a lot of in this class, and we've already started. You've consumed blogs and you've created blogs. As we continue around the circle, and I'm just going to go through these quickly, these are things we're going to interact with throughout the semester. So there's wikis, video conferences, chat, social networking services, digital forums and online communities, social bookmarking, digital photo sharing, and then content development communities. I'm going to add one more thing to this model. I'm going to add tools to this model. One thing that's striking about this model is the number of double-headed arrows in this model. So an intentional PLN not only uses a broader variety of resources in the PLN, but those resources tend to be much more collaborative, much more interactive. So you're not only consuming, There are sometimes you're just consuming, but most of the time you're actually interacting with others as well. So that's the intentional PLN. We're going to come back to this model as we move through the semester.